2, 3.
The story of interior wall framing really starts with a video we released 2 months ago about a certain surprise proposal. So if you haven't seen that yet, make sure to click the icon and check it out for a really awesome story. The best 6 of my life. Elaina, will you marry me?
Yes.
Aww.
Mine look like they're pretty good. I might need it to slide a little bit.
We left off in the garage header video bolting down our sill plates with our 7-inch long drill-in concrete wedge anchors. And we used an extra sill plate on top of the pressure treated one to allow us to cut the studs individually to length. We had a grand idea that we were going to be able to stand this wall up and just magically lift it up over that pipe, but about halfway up that was pretty apparent that was not going to happen. These walls are a lot heavier than they look. Nothing the Sawzall can't fix, followed by a little bit of crap from Elaina.
Hope we don't regret that later. Did you give yourself excess? You didn't cut very straight. Are we going to be screwed later on? That's our drain pipe. You promise. You promise.
Promise.
I don't trust you because you've made a lot of mistakes in the past.
Hasn't every summer.
Maybe one more higher?
Once we cut the pipe down, it was pretty easy to get the wall up on some blocks and lift it right up over the pipe.
Stuck over there.
Now we're on to interior walls and have started laying out our sill plates, drilled holes for the pipes here, and Elaina is really taking the challenge of figuring out where we can drill our anchor bolts. You can see here she's scrolling through our YouTube video for the radiant tubing and screenshotting as needed to figure out our measurements. We did take photos of where all the tubing actually is, except we didn't quite get out this far for some reason. We kind of stopped with the tape measure like right about here-ish. So we need to figure out where this last little bit needs to be. This is a door right here, so we want to anchor on the other side of the door frame, and there's a tube running somewhere right in here, and we just got to be careful we don't hit it. To anchor down these partition walls that aren't load bearing, I just use some 3-inch regular Tapcon screws, just sort of stagger them about every foot or so. Quick overview of how we're doing our interior wall framing to make sure it's at the right height over this pretty uneven slab. After we have our Tapcons fastened down through that bottom plate, I'm doing basically a double bottom plate in this wall. So I have another plate screwed to my original bottom plate, and then I will be using a spacer to represent my top plate anywhere there's a stud. And what we've done at the top is run a string line super tight across the top edge from wall to wall where the top of this wall should be. Then all I need to do is set a stud on top of that spacer, bump it up against my string line there, and I will have my cut line. Because of the unevenness in the slab, every stud will be slightly different length, and this kind of ensures that we have a flat wall at the top. Even though this is an interior partition wall, we still need to tie it in with the exterior wall, so we need to make sure it's at the same height. And if you like this hat, smash that like button. Got the safety queen working over here, making sure we're not going to be slipping on any sawdust.
It becomes super slippy when you have sawdust, so occasionally I come through and sweep everything up.
You go, girl.
Woo!
To fasten the interior to the exterior walls, we put in ladder blocking, which is essentially just a ladder of 5 2x6s in between one of the stud bays that we can nail to. The skid steer jib boom came in handy yet again to lift this wall up and over the pipes. Gotta have it, baby. We gotta have it, baby. Okay.
We did it!
It's
It's funny. This is funny.
Yeah, baby. I continued using the same string method. On the outside wall, I just wrapped it around and hooked it to a screw. On the inside, I put another screw and used what's called, I believe, the engineer's knot. I learned it from Essential Craftsman. Really good way to pull the string super, super tight and not have a big knot in it and make it easily releasable. As we marked each stud, we numbered them and put it on the sill plate too. We have finally reached the very last wall. Thankfully, it's the easiest one. This little guy that makes up the side of the bathroom, just 5 studs, 2x4s. Can't get much simpler than that, no openings. So let's get this thing up and then on to squaring and then sheathing everything. Side note, I invested in one of these Stabila plate-to-plate levels. Very, very necessary, I think, if you're doing wall framing with modern day materials. The lumber is crooked, bowed, warped, doesn't matter seemingly where it comes from. And this tool allows you to plumb walls basically by bypassing the crooked stud that the wall is made of, but just going from the edge of the top plate to the edge of the bottom plate. This is a 7-foot to 12-foot extendable level, and it has made my life a lot easier already. So it was well worth the $400, and I hope to keep the straight edge for quite a while. It will definitely come in handy for the rest of the project. The last task for interior wall framing was putting the center header in that we built in place. The plans called for a double 2x12, but I needed to fur it out to the full 5.5 inch width, so I added a couple 2x6s in the middle and a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. The flush cut bit on the router made trimming the plywood flush super easy. In general, for my 2x12 headers, I was using 3.5 inch nails every foot on center and 4 different rows. The cordless DeWalt framing nailer really came in handy yet again. Once the walls were all built, it was time to get everything plumb, square, and aligned. For this, I used these Formaliner brackets I got at the concrete supply store. You can screw them right to a 2x4 and they can push or pull the wall as needed. I hooked my masonry string line blocks on the edges of the wall so I had a good string to align to. Once my walls were held straight with the form brackets, I put 2x4s in to keep them that way when we put the floor system on. I set up a couple sleepers on the slab to mount the braces to. I was able to brace them to all the sill plates so I didn't have to drill into the slab. Once all the walls were aligned and plumb, I just went around with my nail gun and clamps, clamping the top plate down and nailing into above the studs. I made sure not to nail between the stud bays because that's where we're going to be putting plumbing and wires later. Well, believe it or not, I think we are finally done putting all the interior walls up. Of course, we still have to sheet everything, but this is a pretty huge step for a couple people that have never framed before. Everything seems to be pretty darn plumb, straight, and I haven't pulled diagonals at the top yet, but I'm hoping it's pretty square too. This was a lot of work, more than I even anticipated from the start for sure. But I am glad that we took on the challenge. It's a really cool learning experience. In the future, I'll probably hire it out, to be honest. It's just way more efficient. It would have been done in, this would have probably been done in like a day and a half, maybe. There was a little bit of complexity in doing the custom cut studs over all the slab walls, so that would have taken a bit longer, and framing over that plumbing wall was a little bit of a pain. But overall, a crew probably would have done it in maybe a day or two. But I'm glad Elaina and I got the experience of doing it. knowing that we had such an integral hand in our framing. But the next step is gonna be sheeting everything and putting the rest of the sheets on the wall. I do kind of wish we hadn't have tried that experiment of sheeting the wall on the floor first. I think it works a lot better if you have a deck that you can tack everything square to, but luckily that turned out pretty square. I didn't have to make any major adjustments, didn't have to take the sheeting off. But in the future, learn from that and either go all unsheathed or all sheathed. Anyway, thanks for watching. A couple amateurs frame the first floor of their house. It's been fun, we've learned a lot, and hopefully the rest of the project goes smoothly. See you next time.